So welcome to Baachu's first Brexit update webinar. It's 4th of October at 3 p.m. So I just thought I'll do this update. There's no way I'm an expert on all the Brexit topics, but I thought it's better to bring in all the Brexit developments in one place so that it's much easier for people to digest the information. And also, it also helps me to gather my thoughts of what's happening across the industry as well. So every week, Friday, 3 p.m., I'll bring you the latest Brexit updates, what I perceive as the important things for the business services industry. So before we begin, there is also Brexit readiness webinar that I'm planning to schedule on the 9th of October, 3 p.m. and on the 22nd of October, 3 p.m. where I'll be delving deeper on the 5 or 6 topics on the people, systems, and also the moment and related items. You can register there at Baachu events. So now let's move on to Brexit developments. I'll be referring my notes and I'll be looking into the pointer. So before the beginning of the Brexit developments of this week, I just thought I'll give you a quick overview of what happened last week, because last week was very, very interesting because the Prime Minister Boris Johnson suffered a serious setback at the Supreme Court. As you know, the Supreme Court ruled out that the proroguing of the Parliament for 5 weeks is actually unlawful. So lots of stuff happened after that. And then Boris Johnson met the European Commission President, Jean-Claude Juncker, and Luxembourg, and then discussed about his plans for a no deal on the 31st October. Moving on, the backstop was always tricky. This is how last week was ending. But then, most importantly, what happened after that was the businesses and the European Union start to react to it. Primarily, the Irish Prime Minister, as always, is still concerned of, here we go, Ireland has become a football now, guys, what's happening here? But the view from Europe was very interesting. I can say that there are some positive people. Belgian MEP Guy Verhofstadt, I will get my pronunciation right at some point, started to say, the rule of law in UK is alive and kicking. Then the European Council's head, Donald Tusk, said there is no breakthrough, no breakdown, no time to lose. Michael Barnier, the man behind all the Brexit negotiations on the European Union, said, they're ready to negotiate the legal and operational proposals, but they are still waiting for further detail. This is last week, by the way. This is last week. I'm just setting the scene for what's happening this week. Again, Germany has its own voice. EU27 will support a solution that is fair, practical, legally binding. One thing that the European Union is doing is they are teaching us a masterclass on negotiation. 27 countries coming with one voice. Here, one country is talking in 27 voices. That's the first massive negotiation masterclass that the European Union is teaching us. While this was happening, the businesses start to respond. As you know, the dairy sector chief executive, Dale Farm, Mr. Nick Whelan, he mentioned that believes that the European Union export tariffs in the event of no deal would wipe out the whole agri-food industry. Remember, this is a key sector in Northern Ireland. Again, the European Union Auto Manufacturers and Association have warned that losses in billions of euros would be incurred in the event of no deal Brexit. Production stoppages could potentially cost £50,000 per minute in Britain alone, £50,000. CIPD, the Chartered Institute of Personal Development, came out with its own thing. UK employers are not prepared for post-Brexit labour supply disruption. They published even a report that said the UK employers are not prepared because they have a lack of planning and ongoing political uncertainty. We all knew that, meaning few companies are equipped to deal with potential supply shock of reduced inflow of EU workers. CIPD also came up with a lot of recommendations to the government, among which a lower salary threshold to be set for skilled workers based on jobs covered by the shortage occupation list. This week, both Labour and Conservative have their party conference, and the number of living wages and stuff have been bounded on, but let's still focus on what happened last week. The automotive industry again came back. Jaguar Land Rover, one of the largest auto employers in UK, has said it plans to shut down its British production plants for a week in November. The news comes after BMW, Toyota, announced similar moves. In comments, The Guardian, the JLR chief exec, Ralph Spence, said, I need 20 million parts a day, and I have to have each one just in time. You can imagine 20 million parts for a car per day, and it's all coming in different parts of Europe, assembled in different parts of Europe, it's coming back to UK, going back to Europe, coming back to UK, and a whole car has been made. This previous shutdown caused substantial losses, said according to the SMMT, which is the body of the auto manufacturers. Let's still convene of what's happening last week. The medicine supply, according to NAO, said that a significant amount of work still need to be done with regards to the government preparations for medicine supply in a no-deal Brexit. They even published a report, NAO, saying that there urges the government to gain a full picture of its supply base and ensure that there is sufficient freight for medicines. Positively, the UK government and Japan exchanged letters on mutual recognition of conformity assessment. This means that the specified goods tested in the UK against Japanese regulations can be sold in Japan without additional regulations. Positive at last. This agreement will take place after Brexit and will cease once a UK-Japan mutual recognition agreement is finalized. As we speak, that's been finalized by the teams. This is last week, ending last week, Friday. But let's move to this week. This week, we know that the Conservative Party's annual conference happened in Manchester. Prime Minister Boris Johnson unveiled his vision, take it or leave it, Brexit plan. Yes, the 6-page notorious Brexit plan. The 3 rejections in the Parliament led to the Prime Minister to publish a letter to the EU President setting out plans for a new and final Brexit deal. UK would start at a no-deal Brexit if EU denounces the latest offer. As you know, 17th of October, European Council starts to convene. They're going to start to discuss about this. This is where we have the 6-pager, very interesting. You can go for it. As always, Northern Ireland is being placed in a regulatory zone with the EU for food, agriculture, industrial products, removing the need for checks. Funnily enough, the DUP have now released a statement saying they provisionally welcome Boris's plans. What do you think Labour has said? Labour said this plan is worse than Theresa May's deal. Either way, when the politicians argue with each other, as you know, EU collectively responds together and EU collectively stands together to work. I won't say against UK, but they at least are together there, and look at us. So, the members of the European Union Parliament, MEPs, are likely to reject PM Johnson's current proposal as it stands, largely due to two borders plan, as I mentioned, about the backstop. A customs barrier in Ireland with inevitable checks and an oversight of the regulatory border between Northern Ireland and Great Britain. The prorogation, unlawful, that's what last week. The government still plans to suspend the parliamentary session on October 8th again. Suspending parliament means PM's questions would not be held next week, wherein the lawmakers get an opportunity to question the PM. The Labour leader stated PM Johnson is likely to face a hostile reception in Parliament as his offer is worse than the previous ones presented by Theresa May, as I already told you. So this is what's happening this week. Labour conference came out with his own view. Again, there is a lot of messages from the Conservative Party conference. In our newsletter, you'll be having much more details on what this is. What does the EU state? As always, the Irish government has rejected this new Brexit draft. The Irish Deputy Prime Minister Simon Coveney even went on to say, the EU officials denounced the condition in this plan, claiming it to be fundamentally flawed. That's it. So what's happening? The businesses are responding week by week, as you know. Services industry, first time going down, pretty down, as per the latest statistics. But the Japanese auto giant Nissan has claimed that it will review its decision to build the Qashqai SUV, which is one of the best performing vehicles in Northern England in the event of a no-deal Brexit. Again, a blow. This could potentially lead to closure of the famous Sunderland plant. JLR with its Jaguar Land Rover plans to halt production of its cars for a week in November. As I mentioned, that's the thing that they said last week. But if that happens, that's also has an impact on the auto manufacturing industry. A slump was actually witnessed in the commercial and civil engineering sectors, according by IHS Markit CIPS survey, Chartered Institute of Professional Survey. UK Construction Purchasing Managers Index fell to 43.3 in September from 45.0 in August. The companies are blaming this increasing uncertainty, anxiety towards Brexit, and a weak demand for the decline of the industry. So, what does it mean to us as Brexit? You know, what week by week politicians are going to come out with the messages of this is going to happen, break it, take it, or leave it, all these messaging. But as businesses, there is a cost to run a business. There's a cash constraint. And we do need to have certainty of what needs to come up so that we can invest on people, invest on ourselves, invest on growth. Unfortunately, it looks like the clarity is getting lower and lower as the week progresses, as we stare October 31st. So 9th of October, I'll give you some principles on, what we could do on the Brexit, because, I'm preparing myself for it as much as I can, as I know you are preparing yourself, but let's also take the time out to do it. So weekly, I'll try to bring out my thoughts on this. It's going to be 10 to 15 minutes quickly, of what I believe are the latest updates in the market, listen it through, hear it through, and see what you can do. So that's from me, Bhaskar Sundaram from Baachu, and I'll see you next week at the new webinar where I'll be dwelling much more into what happened next week. Again, the newsletter of today will be released Monday. So if you want to subscribe to our Brexit newsletter, please do. It's www.baachu.com/Brexit. It's www.baachu.com/Brexit. So have a good, relaxing weekend, and I'll speak to you next week, Friday. Bye.